We're talking about post-COVID filmmaking, right? And I know it sounds really sort of strategic, like, oh, what's this whole thing? It's really, COVID has taught us a lot of things real quick in the filmmaking industry. As you all know, it literally shut down the world for for most of us for an entire year. Uh, Specifically, LA, we literally just opened back up. Like we were shut down for a very long time. So we went through the stages of reopening, and how that's affected the industry as a whole. Um, it's affected us. There's a lot of dramatic things that happen behind the scenes, and a lot of things that have happened as we tried to shut down productions and then ramp back up to production with all the protocols of always have a mask, everyone's tested, wipe down everything that you touch to a timely manner, right? It was literally like on the hour, okay, break, time to spray and wipe everything. Then 2 hours later, okay, break, wipe everything down again. Right, everybody go back out, sanitize, come back in. They had some places would spray you as you walk in. So, but it's because COVID sort of caught everyone off guard, being an aerial type of virus, right? That it's in the air and you have no way of controlling that. And the way it jumped around just made everything within the industry come to a standstill. And that's never happened. That was the first time that it ever happened for the world, right? The world literally shut down. But we had to figure out a way to readjust. I like to always say that in filmmaking, we're always filmmaking 6 months into the future, because there's nothing that you're going to shoot today that anyone will see up until about 6 months from now. No matter how fast you are, right, to really get it out and have it purposed and move forward, it's going to take about 6 months. And God forbid you have to do coloring and score and all. It's going to push out to a year. So the majority of the movies that you see were shot years ago, right? Your favorite actors, and you see them do the press runs and it feels like it's new. It's not new. Shot over, it was done in 2019, right? The things that are, the productions that are going on now are moving massively fast because COVID's taught us a lot of things. It's taught us that we need to get as much in the can as possible in case something else happens. So there's a lot of production happening. There's a lot of deals being made. There's a lot of content that is being purchased and distributed through multiple platforms. That's the other thing that COVID taught us that's really well, is that we can pivot from our theatrical release and do a lot of streaming, right? Netflix 2 years ago owned the streaming world. It's all Netflix and Netflix only, right? Amazon was kind of there. Hulu was kind of there. But with COVID and everybody being at home, everybody ramped up their production budgets tenfold. Billions and billions of dollars. They were like, we're going to spend billions of dollars to shoot whatever projects we can shoot, to get them in the can and stream them. Then along came all the studios decided, which everyone was hinging on it for a while, to have their own distribution platforms. Because you're going to pay a fee to watch it either way. You can either give it to the theater, which we have to split. There's a split that's involved with the theater, or you can just pay me a subscription base and I can play it on my streaming service. What the old way was, you set up distribution deals with places like Netflix and Amazon and things of that nature, to where they do the distribution for you on their platforms and pay you a certain amount of money up front and some on the back. So how does that affect you guys? How does that affect filmmakers today? How does that affect web series or short film or independent feature or independent TV series? It affects you because those timelines have affected everything, right? If you're making a web series where last year or the year before, 2019, it may have taken you 2 weeks to shoot your entire web series, you're going to probably have to get that web series done in a week now, because every timeline is now sped up. And it just tinkles downhill. So if someone's going to give you money to come in and produce your web series, they're going to be expecting a faster turnaround. And that's all because of COVID. Because now they also know that we can work faster. They also know that you can produce and do everything a lot faster. You don't need all the resources that you used to have. You no longer need all those resources, because everything's in the palm of your hand. right? So they expect a fast turnaround no matter what. So COVID's literally changed the industry as a whole. Some of the safety measures are, again, you have to wear masks on set. Everyone's masked up. Everyone's either vaccinated and or tested on the day with a rapid test. 10, 15 minutes, you have an answer. If you're positive, you can't come on. You lose your job, basically. If you're an actor, if you're not big enough, then yeah, you're going to lose your job, right? Someone's on standby always ready to take your place. Some of the bigger name actors, of course, they'll shut down production, but that costs a lot of money. We just ended up shutting down Mission Impossible again for COVID. It's a lot of money to shut down a production that big. But that's because the protocol was broken and it just went, that's what happened. So it's very strategic. Like you have to be very, in order to work in the Hollywood version of filmmaking, you have to adhere to so many rules and apply those rules to your everyday, they become part of your everyday life. If you don't want to be vaccinated, you're tested every time you touch a set. And you're taking a risk of, if you do show up positive, whether you're sick or not, you can get off the show, right? If you're, some of the crew members, a lot of them now are sort of, you have to be. Because we create these bubbles, like a lot of stuff you hear about the bubbles, where you work in the bubble, that's because everybody's negative and everybody has to stay negative. Tyler Perry does an amazing job at creating bubbles at his lot. You live there. You literally live there the entire time that you're shooting your project for his productions. And now he's making that open to other productions that come to shoot in Atlanta, that you can literally bubble your whole entire production. But as time goes on, the vaccinations are going to become a key part of that, because it only helps you, again, because timelines have moved up. You can speed up, and we don't have to take 15 minutes to test you because you have the pass and we know that you've done it. So that's sort of the overview of where COVID is today, and it's always changing. I know on the 12th today, right? There were some more openings, a lot of things open. All the studios are having all these massive conferences and about how to return to work and how that's going to look and how we're getting back to some of the normal. But the timelines don't change. Just because life becomes normal, timelines, once they move forever. The streaming space has also created a big, huge move in terms of filmmaking, because of all the platforms and all the streaming places that you can go and you can now get your content. They also want to be aware of how you made your content and how it was made, what it was made from, what did you shoot. Netflix has a list, and I'm sure most of you filmmakers have been on there and pulled that list down. Very specific cameras and very specific everything to even be on Netflix. That's going to be the way of all streamers. Things are going to have to be done a certain type of way to get your projects onto these platforms, because now they're going to live on these platforms forever, right? And this post-COVID filmmaking is also a robust way of me going around everything that you guys have gone through all these seminars, because all those things are part of this filmmaking process and how to get to the end result, which we did earlier with the distribution. So I just kind of wanted to start off with just the world of where that is. This is more of a Q&A sort of panel, because I'm sure you guys have questions, and they don't only have to be COVID related, but whenever COVID's involved or any type of relation to that, I'll just jump in and tell you why. So if you guys want to start any questions on any topics of filmmaking, we can open it up. And like I said, if it relates to COVID, I'll dive into some of the COVID stuff. But COVID's changing. Again, as of today, literally today, there's new protocols. I haven't had a chance to check them, but there's brand new protocols as of today. They've lightened up some more things. But again, that testing and those masks, they're not going anywhere.
All right, here I come. I'm getting my steps in today.
Hi, so this is a question for like storylines. I noticed some shows they're incorporating COVID into the storylines. Do you know if like networks are like seeking those type of stories now, like including COVID stories, or should creators focus on like normal worlds?
I would say continue focusing on normal world. The shows that picked up in COVID were the shows that they left off before COVID, and they knew that they would come back and COVID would still be like just shaking the entire world, right? Grey's Anatomy. There's a bunch of shows that they immediately pick back. As soon as they come on, it's about COVID, right? But then if you notice, 3-4 episodes in, it kind of went away, right? So they open with it and tell you how, it's dangerous because you want to be as current as possible. But filmmakers, we always, like I said, we're 6 months to a year in the future, right? As of today, the COVID cases are down to about 3,000, 2,500 throughout the US, right? 4 months ago, that number was like 300,000, right? So it would make sense to have that show on air then. If you do something and put COVID and you put mask on today, we're probably not going to see it till November. And I don't know what COVID will look like in November. Hopefully, if it's the way it's going, it won't be a big thing. People probably still wear masks or something. Like I said, just the common move around space on your flights, things like that. You get used to that for about another year. But as far as content, I wouldn't necessarily put a pin in it. I would probably just go back to making the content that I make, but noticing the protocols as you're in your production. Because if it does go back up, everything's going to shut down, and now you're going to have to try to find a way to get to that space.
So are you saying, because I just kind of realized it, like with my web series, I remember my team was thinking, should we talk about COVID? But thankfully we didn't, because we didn't even have a chance to shoot anything. But do you think that for like especially small creators that don't have a lot of money to put out things quick enough, to always stick to evergreen and not like current things like a COVID situation, a pandemic?
Yeah, it depends, right? It's a tricky question because there's a couple of movies that literally were made years ago and they look just like COVID films. The Contagion, yeah, right? Will Smith's I Am Legend, right? These are basically stories of COVID. So can it work? Yes, but those stories are told specifically because of the way these contagions work in the world, right? Because these things happen everywhere. They just don't happen in the US, right? COVID's not new to the world. COVID-19 is new, but COVID itself is a form of SARS. That's not new, right? These things have been all around the world for many, many years. So we're just getting to the space where now we deal with these global pandemics, and now we got to figure out a way to adjust. But your content, we've always made content that talked about it, but it's always in other countries and other this. Trust me, you'll see 5 movies come out in the next year or so about COVID. But they'll also play in 10 years from now and 15 years from now, because something else will happen. And then that's what I'm saying about Contagion. If they change the name, they could say COVID, and it would feel, you'd be like, oh my God, they knew, right? I Am Legend, he's saying exactly, I made a mistake with this and I did this and this is what happened. People turned into zombies. A lot of people thought COVID was zombie. Everybody was afraid because it's like, you go to Walmart, you can become a zombie. So I don't want to tell you not to do it. I try not to tell people what not to do, because then you do it and it might be a hit. But if you do it, just do it with purpose of telling a specific thing about it, right? And then you have to obviously win at the end or not.
All right, who else got there we go. 11,000 steps.
Hi. I have a 2-part question. So the first part is, with the push for content, do you feel like networks are more open to hearing newer voices? And the second part of the question is, do you have advice for independent filmmakers who are interested to be shopping around content to networks?
Yes and yes. Short answer. But I'm not good with short answers. So yeah, I think that for content creators, this is a great opportunity. This time is a great opportunity. I think there's a lot of ways and new platforms to get yourselves out to the world. Instagram changed digital evolution, right? That people were telling these stories and it found a way to tell a story in 30 seconds, but multiple different ways. It's basically one episode over 65 episodes, right? So people, you shoot your content and then you're very specific about how you want it to end because you know the platform in which you're going to distribute it. But the goal with that is you can't shoot that and then put it on Instagram and then sell it to Pluto, right? Pluto's probably going to they're going to look at that. They're going to look at you and your team and go, we really like them. What else do you have, right? It's always a good note when you hear someone say, what else do you have? Okay? Which means you should have something else. Because that thing is already moving, right? No one jumps on a boat that isn't going anywhere. But if your boat's hitting the waves, even if it's not you pedaling it and it's not a motorboat, it's moving, right? It's not merged up against the sand. As long as it's moving, you can draw interest from anywhere, right? The better foundation you have, meaning we were talking about Issa Rae earlier, having the web series, having another web series, and having another web series. And the numbers weren't astronomical numbers. They were just very consistent, right? And they built from show to show. From season to season, she showed a following, right? Today, that's a little more, you can say it's easy, but it's probably a little more difficult today because there's so many places you can go, right? You got Instagram, you got TikTok, so there's all these places and all that aggregated information. It can look bigger and that's ways to trick it, so getting your stuff and knowing how you want to deliver it is really important. So if you take a web series and you want to deliver it and put it onto YouTube, and you go to YouTube with it and monetize as much of YouTube as you can, get enough views on it for season 1, have intention in season 2 to not only build onto that story, but also build onto the production, right? I can't state enough how important your production value is. It's really important. Because it shows the industry that you as a creator can create, right? If you have 3 seasons of your show and I put on episode 1 of season 1 and episode 4 of season 1, and I go to season 5 and put on episode 8, and I can't tell the difference, probably never coming back. And there's no reason for me to invest in that because it's just one season with 45 episodes. Right? So you want to be able to, and it's all growth, right? So I'm not saying that, it's anything wrong with having 3 seasons. It takes a while to get your footing, which is why people make short films, right? It's practice to get ready for the big game, right? There was a time where you can make a short film, get into a festival, win the festival, and they give you a movie deal. Days are gone, right? It just doesn't work that way anymore, right? It just doesn't work that way anymore. But what you can do is get into a festival. You can win a festival, or just getting in also helps. And then what else do you have, right? It becomes that. So 2018, you were in the Miami Web Fest. 2021, you're back at the Miami Web Fest with something new. 2022, for your 3rd time, you're back and you win. Okay, that's worth looking into because that tells me that the first year you did pretty good. You came back the second year and it developed, but the 3rd year you won. So that's also an avenue, right? That's also an avenue to get your stuff out. Be specific about choosing what you want to do with your projects. And then that entails, what are you shooting your projects on? You hear a lot of people talking about, you can just shoot it on your phone. True. That's true. If you shoot something on a phone and I tell you it's a great project and I put it in the IMAX theater and I invite all you guys to come watch it, the minute it comes on, you're going to walk out because it's going to look terrible on an IMAX screen, right? I was talking earlier about Paranormal Activity. That movie was purchased. The movie was made for $8,000. It got up to about $10,000, but $8,000 because you can't spend $10,000 without getting into tax trouble. But so they ranked it at $8,000. So Paranormal Activity started at $8,000. I can't remember the gentleman's name. Steven Spielberg's partner at the time overheard the movie being played in the Paramount Theater, and just from hearing it, he peeked at it for 5 minutes. Went upstairs to the projectionist and said, give me that. The guy that did Paranormal Activity, he was screening it for his friends and family. It's like 50 people in the theater. Theater seats like 500-600 people. And his movie just goes off. He's thinking he's in trouble or something. But he saw something, right? This movie's great, but I need to run it by some people. And I don't have time to talk to you and to take that and come up with the idea of, imagine if we put something behind this. And that conversation starts. So you can get there's a lot of ways. That wasn't his intention. His intention wasn't going in and I'm gonna pitch this. Trust me, he tried. But one person, there was construction and he went to the bathroom in the theater, and that's how he heard it. It's been played over a weekend. But they could never take that $8,000 movie and put it on a screen. Can you play it on your iPhone? Yes. Today you can go, okay, we're going to distribute this through Pluto and only make it streamable through a mobile device. It's possible. They probably wouldn't spend as much. But if you do take the time to invest the money, which was a very smart move on Paramount's side, to take that money, put a few $100,000 into it, bring everything up. The hardest thing was bringing up the film because it was shot at such a low quality. And then reinvesting in the sound design to go back and redo the entire sound design. So if you go back and watch Paranormal Activity, you'll notice that sound design is enhanced way better than the picture. It's the sound design, but that's also A Quiet Place, right? It's the sound design. But again, if you're strategic enough to understand that the levels of how you're trying to get things done, it depends on where it's going and what you're going to do with it. So if you have a platform, if you have somewhere where you want to go, you have a web series, you should know all the places where web series play. To know where you want to place these things. We have people on the panel have their own web series distributions. Start looking into those, right? There's no bottom level. It's just levels as you grow, right? Maverick Entertainment is looking at web series and building those things out and making them feature films. Doug said he's created up to 3 films that he's taken from web series and turned them into features, and they're in the top 10 of his platform, streaming. Top 10 from web series. So now those creators, I'm sure they're going to go back to Doug with their next project. Doug also provides budgets, so I'm sure he's going to give them a better budget than he would have given them if they had just walked in with the script, because he knows that they're capable. So if you continue to build onto that platform, if you continue to take what you do, look at it, and be honest with yourselves. I love everything that I do when I first do it, right? When I'm in editing and I'm done, I'm like, yo, it's the best thing ever. I give myself about a month. I come back, I don't feel the same way. All I see is what I could have done better. But that only helps me with the next project and the next project. So if you're sitting there and your film's been finished for a year and you still love it, you got to figure something out, because you can be passionate about it. You can know that it's good, but at this point, you should be able to see the mistakes, because that's where you learn to get better at the next project and the next project, right? You need to start looking at, okay, what kind of shots did I use? Have purpose in everything, right? The greatest way to make impact in film is to have purpose. A Quiet Place is titled A Quiet Place because it's a sound movie. You can't talk. You can't walk hard. You can't close doors. It is telling you what kind of movie you're watching. So if the sound doesn't sound like that, it's not people hate the movie. People love the movie because they're intrigued by, if that little, the monsters are coming. So it's already established. So figure out what your space is and establish it, and build your production around that. Every camera angle is not straight on. Take the camera and put it down, right? If your protagonist is bigger than life, it should be a low angle, right? If I don't trust you, put them dead center in the screen. Every time you shoot him, and it makes me go, why is he in the middle of the screen? Because you're telling me not to trust this guy, right? We're very specific about every shot, every size, every sound you hear. We have this quote, everything in the frame is in the frame for a reason, right? You can open the movie on an image and then at the end show you that same image just a little bit different. And it tells you the entirety of the whole movie. Anybody seen Unusual Suspects? So the first scene is, somebody else tell me, what's the first scene? First thing you see? Kaz I saw saying, what is he doing? And what's wrong with his walk? At the end, what do you see? With that same limp, but then what happens to the limp? It goes away, right? The entire movie's told to you that this guy's a fraud from the very first frame to the very last frame, right? So you have to be very specific in your storytelling. And it's just a walk. He pretends the whole way through, but you forgive him because you think, oh, look at this guy. You feel empathetic. And look at the camera angles. That's why you feel empathetic. You feel like this guy's a good guy, not because he is, because of the way we shoot him, right? We shoot him in this softer frame. We pull back off of him a little bit, never too tight. He's never connected in his shots to the other people. I know you guys know about over the shoulders. He's in a single. A lot of times he's in a single because if you put him over the shoulder, it means there's a connection between him and the person he's talking to. But if it's a single, he's not connected. And out of everybody, he's in the single the most. Right? You hear this about film. I'm sure a bunch of film people tell you, turn the sound off and watch it. And you can try that. It might be a little entertaining, but you need to know what you're watching. You're looking at it's the frames you're watching. It's the shots. It's the two shot. It's the over the shoulder. It's the close up. Right? It's the reverse. It depends. You're giving me information picture to picture. It's just information. So a lot of people wonder why it's harder to make it up the ladder. This is why. It's all the production of it is what sells. Issa Rae got better as her series went on. She learned more. She got if you look at the first couple of them, you go, okay, I like them. They're cool, nice acting. These are some of the same actors later. But then they added the production side to it, the production value of it, right? Not necessarily the production design. Design is different. And if you can add that, great, because that helps too. But if you can't, if you're stuck because of locations and budgets, you got to be very creative in your choices of what you're shooting and why you're shooting it. And you have to get coverage, okay? Don't just get these two sitting here, those two, and have them look at each other. They look this way, we're fine. No, you're not, right? You want to get that camera over him, so when he looks over from her, these two, single. You just have to be very selective so that when you're in editing that you have those choices to tell that story. Those are the things that push you to the next level. Those are the things where someone goes, hey, finds an executive and goes, I saw this film, Brian Thompson made this film and somebody told me it was good and I watched it. Here's a copy. Why don't you just pop it in and play it for a second? Or they just walk over and go, it's on Amazon. Look at this, man. You're not going to believe it. Remember we were talking about doing that action film? Look at this guy. He made this film 5 years ago. And then they put on his film and they watch it and they go, oh, let's make something happen with this guy. It gets that simple at times. He did that? Cool. Let's find out what he paid, how much money he spent, and Brian gonna be like, nothing. Right? I spent my own money, so yeah.
Facts.
Please give me that back. But that's how you move. That's where the needle moves. The needle moves because you see that the team is capable, right, of telling a certain type of story. And there's a market for it. That's the other part, is know your market. Know who you're going to give this film to. Don't take your action movie to a horror place, right? They may have a couple of action movies built into their schedules or built into their, what is it called? Their, what's that? No, it's slate. Yeah, built into their slate, their distribution slate, but they probably only do 2 a year, right? That's because it works better foreign. It works better in the foreign market. The other 15 are all horror. So your chances of taking your action film and getting in slim to none because they only have room for 2. And one of those is Brian, and he's already got 5 action movies, and they like, we know he good for number 6, so now you got 1. So you got to know it versus getting all the no's, because you're still going to get no's, but you don't want to get 500 no's when you really only deserve to have 100. But you sent 400 to places that they were going to be no regardless of how good it was. It just doesn't fit their company bill. So you got to start doing more research and hopefully doing this before you go out and create your project so that you're aware of where you want it to go. studios and major production companies, the slates are always booked up based off of what's coming down the road. Again, we're always in the future. So we want to know every genre has its time. Comedies kind of can play anytime. But there are also comedy times when everything's comedy. Action, same thing. There's an action bubble, and then there's a dark drama bubble. That horror is always. You can always get away. Every studio has a slate of horrors, 3, 4, 5 a year, and they're fine. And that number's doubling and tripling because of streaming. That's what I mean. There's more content to be bought and purchased and made because there's new ways to get it out. So you want to know where you best align your project and with who. And what are the, and again, also if you're looking forward, you're looking at what are the protocols, because if you do get a deal and it does work out, they'll go, we like this, but what else do you have? And then you say, well, we actually got this other pilot that we wrote based off of our web series, and here it is. And they take a read and go, cool, we'll pay for that. How fast can you get it to us? You're still in the post-COVID world, so your timeline is going to be really important if you come back and say, give us a month. And they're going to go, we'll pass. You know why? Because somebody has something very similar to what you have. To the lady's question, the lady was asking the lawyers the question earlier about getting things in and having that issue with the studio or the production company going, we have something similar. They probably do. That's just the truth. They probably do have something similar. Because if I open submission right now in this room and I get 30 submissions of web series, some of your stories are going to sound a lot alike. And then because your story sounds like your story, it sounds like her story, then I'm going to go, whose story is the better story? And then I tell your story, then they're going to be like, you stole our story. And so, because they haven't had a chance, they haven't read it, right? Which is why all that paperwork that you sign is really saying that you can't sue us, right? We don't take unsolicited material. Right there, you already can forget it. You're not going to get the NDA signed. It's just not going to happen. It's a risk involved. There's definitely a risk, but more than likely, a very large studio is not going to steal you. It costs less to pay you than to pay my attorneys to fight you. You know this better. I'd rather just keep you here. And if I don't like you, I'll just buy you out. You are not going to turn the money down. Right? Because you live to fight another day. That's what I mean about next. It's not like they're licensing your life. They're licensing, it's this project that they want to take and they want to monetize. They want the IP of your project. And that'll live forever. In any simple deal, you'll get points. You'll get something off of it. But you're not going to get 50%. It's just not going to work that way. Right? Not on your first deal. Just make sure you don't sign a long-term deal without your attorneys and lawyers going, that's a little too long. 10 pictures is a lot of pictures. A lot of people have been bit by the 10-picture deal because that money comes up front and then you never hear from them again and they never make another movie because the studio passed on everything. Nope, we didn't want, nope. It's better if you have a slate of films and you go in and go, here's 10 films. And they go, well, we'll greenlight these 3 and then you owe us 7 more. At least you know you'll get those 3. But if you don't have any in a offer, because they still do it, now you have to find 10. And there's no way to know your niche or know what you're good at, right? Brian makes very specific films. If I give him a 10-picture deal, he already has 3 or 4 of those films in mind. So we're going to already have those set up because we know this is what he's good at. But then he's going to want to try some stuff too.
Definitely.
Right? And we may pass on all the stuff that he already has, but he'll be able to go out and develop because he has like a 7-year window to turn in 7 more films. Now, if he doesn't, he's going to be okay. But then the deal is over and we walk away. We still own the 3 that we got from him, right? So it's a lot, and I know this is a lot of information. I know it sounds like that's a lot, but it's good to know because I think the more you know, the better you become as a filmmaker. To know, start setting your goals a little bit higher. Because you can obtain it. It's here. It's feasible. But there are things that you're going to have to do. Right? There's those skyrocket moments for a bunch of people. Right? And some people feel like, oh, those will never happen again. I feel like they happen all the time. I hear tons of success stories every day. Such and such took off. Such and such took off. And this person, that person. Doesn't mean that today they started working. That just means that they were noticed today. They've been working really hard for the past 20 years, right? They've done 6 web series. They've done 14 short films, right? They did a theater play. They've done everything that they can do to get to the point where the work starts to make sense. And then it gets into the right hands. And that's sort of the second part of the battle, right? The third part of your relay race is, okay, now I need to get this into the hands of the right people. And it's people who know people, right? Nothing better than to know someone who works in distribution and know what they want and get a hold of something that's really good and go, you might want to take a look at this. And they're like, all right, cool, I'll take a look. And then they call you and go, man, I couldn't put it down, right? Or you take a script that you've written and you send it out for notes, and some esteemed people call you like an hour later and they go, hey, I need to talk to you. I want to talk to you about this script. That's great. That lets you know that you're so far ahead that person took the time out, 1, to read it, and 2, to get right back to you, that they couldn't put it down. And then you hang up from that call. The next morning, the phone rings again, and somebody else is going, hey, I want to send you these. I made some notes. Can I send you these notes? I love the script, but I want to talk to you about a couple things. So that's what I'm saying. It's a lot of success stories, a lot of ways to get there. Just got to be open to it. And you got to open yourself up. It's tough because it's emotion. The hardest part about the writing is it's all emotional, which is why everybody writes alone in a dark room. Because it's hard to write with other people. At times, there's some back and forth. You may not agree, and they destroy your idea. You sit there, you write all night. You like, wait till you read this, and they go, didn't feel like it to me. I don't know what you were thinking. You way off. You like, what? It's a lot of that, but you have to be open to it because there's some points being made that the person that's co-writing with you didn't get it. And trust me, if you send it out, somebody on the list is going to go, yeah, I didn't get it. Because she was right about something. Your co-writer's right about something. But you have to have that open conversation, and it's tough to have because it's a vulnerable space. Just like putting it up on YouTube, just like putting out your trailers, just like submitting to the Web Fest. It's a tough thing, but you got to just do it. Right? And hopefully everybody walks away from here. Having the opportunity to have your stuff shown is a big step. Having the opportunity to be accepted. And Brian graciously allowed me to be on the submission board this year, and I saw a lot of films. A lot. I don't know how he's been doing this with all those films, but there's a lot of films. There's a panel of us. There's a lot of films. But the crazy part was there was a lot of good films. A lot of really, really good web series films. They were really, really good. So it was really challenging this year trying to decipher through which ones could make it versus which ones couldn't. And at the end, it comes down to, okay, now you got to figure out of these best 150 films, we need to narrow this list down to like 30. Now you have to be very specific, right? This is where the win comes in. It happens, and I'm talking from here to the Oscars. Same thing. You get all those submissions, and at the end, the voting panel, everybody has their favorites, and now I got to watch all of theirs, and they got to watch all of mine, and then we got to make these notes and come back and figure out who's going to win. It's the same thing that's happening here. You got to figure out who's going to win, who has the best film or the best web series based off of all the credentials, who has the best acting, the best lighting, right? It comes down to all these things. And sometimes some things are a little bit better than others. So you have to weigh it. You go, you know what? This production design on this one, and it checked all the boxes, but look at where they shot it at. Like, it's impossible. I would think that they were in a third world country and they literally shot it in Miami. That weighs heavy in the decision making. When you get down to that place, when you start making decisions, you start looking all around. You start going, if they can pull that off, right? And that's sort of how you get closer to the win. But it doesn't negate or deflect from all the other people that got accepted. Because most of the times, a lot of times, the winner wins, but there's other people in that top 10 who end up doing really well. Because again, you've gone through these chains and you're going, man, it's a lot of foreign films. Like, that foreign film was really nice. I like it. And I had had this idea of this action movie that takes place in these different countries. I think I need to talk to them. I think they'd be great for this project. So it just opens up that door. And that's why you submit, and that's why you keep submitting, and you keep submitting to festivals here and there. In Miami Web Fest, you keep coming back here. It's just to get a little bit better and a little bit better. Every time, hopefully, that I see you or that we see you, every time we see you or see your project, it gets better and better and better. And then avenues open up, like Doug's avenue earlier today, just based off of all the information that she had. That wonderful lady was standing there. She had all this great information, and it was answered every question. That tells you as an executive that you go, okay, if they know that much, I definitely want to have a conversation. That was exactly what he said. We definitely need to talk. Because if you know that much and you have the content, you can always move forward. And trust me, Doug is also thinking, if she's got that, I know she got something else. Right? Because again, everybody's projecting forward. He's already thinking that. I'm just going to say it out loud. He's already thinking, what else does she have? So you want to make sure you have something. So I advise everyone, keep writing, keep developing. If you're comfortable and you love your series and you like where it's at, go to season 2. If you like and you learned a lot and you had idea for another one, go to the next one, right? And start building from there.
Well, I think we need, first of all, that was amazing. That was amazing. I mean, I would stand up, but I'm already standing, because damn. Yeah, exactly.